So major news this week, Nextracker is now Nextpower, and it's a major evolution for a company that has been a world leader in solar tracking technology to now providing full energy, clean energy platform. And we're going to be exploring what this transmission means for the industry and for the world in general, and for Nextpower itself. And joining me to discuss this is Tim Cain, Vice President of Global Operations. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yves Figuerola, Vice President of the Supply Chain. Peter Wheale, Regional Lead for Australia Pacific. Thanks for joining us. And James Butcher, Head of Foundations and Agri-PV.
Thanks, Giles.
Tim, let's start with you. It's a pretty significant announcement, both in, not just in name, but also in what you guys are doing. What's prompted this?
Well, thank you, Giles. So what's prompted this? I mean, we've kind of entered into this new era where we have increasing electricity demand. It's kind of unprecedented at the moment, especially with AI and some of the data centers and things that are going on. So Nextracker has used its current platform to look at other opportunities to kind of expand that and to make that more global and also with different product lines. And what we do is we're able to connect those product lines to our customers, to our customers and to their partners, and through innovation. And we now have a whole suite of products that we're offering for solutions to customers' needs.
Yeah, because it's kind of interesting because you sort of kind of focus just on, you've been focused on one particular part of the supply chain, one particular part of the sort of that clean energy economy. It's obviously given you a really interesting insight into the way the industry works, and the opportunities are there. And what's happening now is that you seem to be seizing on these opportunities because solar has become so fundamental to the global green energy transition.
That's correct. I mean, Nextracker has been very successful. We kind of built the foundation within our company over the last 10 or 11 years, and now we're able to expand that into other products and other markets that we weren't traditionally in. We were kind of just a tracker company, and now we've been able to go to many other options at this point.
Yeah, and so what's actually happening in the energy landscape that's actually sort of prompting this change?
What's prompting this change? I think customers are looking for scalable solutions. They want to have products that they can trust their customer, or they can trust their vendor, and that they can deploy, large scale, right? That it's not small little projects anymore. What's going on now as far as delivering energy is in a big platform, and customers really want to be able to focus on key vendors that they trust.
Yeah. If so much of what happens in the green energy transition depends on supply chains and securing those supply chains now, what can you tell us about Nextpower's approach to that?
Well, I think just to rebound on what Tim was saying is over the last decades and more, the company has been building really just foundations to the entire organization, not only supply chain. It comes from engineering, supply chain, execution, project engineering, both R&D and project engineering, which
not just foundations to the solar array, it's to the whole industry.
Yeah, exactly. A foundational organization that is now, it's not always been perfect. Of course, you build, it's a startup, you build, but today we are at a point where the scale is massive, more than what people sometimes realize. And so this gives us basically the ability on the tracker side already today to have this energy security, because we can ensure deliveries all over the world. We do projects in more than 30 places in the world, in the 5 continents, with supply tailored to the demands, regional, and not necessarily in the region always, but close to the region, sometimes in the country, to ensure this stability. So right now, this strength is more than an opportunity than a risk for customers. When you ask why are we expanding, is because we have this strength, we have this ability to basically use this based on engineering skill sets in all the supply chain, the systems, the processes around the people, and we're able to expand to take on more scope and apply the same basically good processes and good execution. So for customers that I used to work with some of those other basically business units that we are now integrating into Nextpower, but are more smaller organization, regional, that maybe don't have the scale and the capabilities that we've built over the last 10 years. This is, as Tim was saying, a lot of benefits for the end customers. One-stop shop, super reliable, the strength of the entire end-to-end. So not only during the projects, but for the next 10, 20, 30 years as you have to service the projects and so on.
Yes, yeah. So it is really just about scale and just sort of bring what you've learned from that sort of that tracking business and just applying them to sort of the other parts of that whole solar supply chain.
Yeah, not only. I mean, and James will talk about that because if you would say, okay, 1 + 1 is 2, but you can do much more when you have the products that basically comes together. You can now tailor the engineering and the products to be even smarter and basically accelerate everything. So I think it's across the board. It's good for our customers, and of course, it's only the beginning. But the entire team is extremely experienced. We're just discussing how all of us don't come from the tracker industry. We come from the solar industry with decades.
It's an interesting point.
And we've supported the tracker industry because we saw an opportunity to improve a lot the energy creation, which has been always the mission of the company. How do we create a more affordable but just a better energy generation for the customers, and how do we now expand it back to the entire portfolio and the ecosystem of the solar plant?
Yeah, and maybe sort of talk specifically about what it means for the local region and customers in Australia and the Asia Pacific region.
Well, I'm sure Pete will talk about that, but I think what would happen in Australia is the same would happen in each of the regions globally, which is, again, instead of working with a regional, very specific partner, you can work with a global company that has the global scalability, both on the, again, engineering, supply chain, finance, and just scale. The scale and the ability to reach operational excellence.
Yeah. I mean, Tim, it's an interesting thing when you're going out and you specialise in one area and you're going out and expanding into sort of multiple areas. It's a whole new challenge, and look, it's an opportunity and it's an exciting one.
It is, but we still have the core of Nextracker, right? We still have the R&D, we still have the supply chain, we still have the services division. We still have those businesses that have been around for 10 years, and we've really set the same processes and same kind of execution style for each one of those different kind of groups that we have. So it's exciting, right? We get to bring new products in, and we get to run them through kind of the same processes that we have. But yeah, it's new to us for sure.
Yeah. No, it's exciting. Peter, you're the head of Australia Pacific. I mean, what does this mean then for maybe sort of find out more about what this means for customers in Australia? You're obviously one of the big players down here. Well, it gets better.
Yeah, it's funny because Australia is a unique region where utility solar, as you know, didn't really exist until 10 years ago.
It's just remarkable when you think about the transition.
I know,
scale.
It's crazy. So I was one of the first people to land and set up the regional office in 2016, and I watched the industry grow, at the same pace altogether. There was a lot of lessons learned. There was a lot of curtailment issues. There was a lot of people that literally had no idea what they were doing, getting into an industry that they thought was going to be the next gold rush, right? So from our standpoint, with a lot of help from our engineering backbone, we helped kind of strengthen and organize the success on the structural side in this region. So it was an interesting experience because not only did we come in when nothing had existed, we kind of forged the path forward. So seeing the evolution of Nextracker going from a startup when I started to a global powerhouse with investment grade bankability to a publicly traded company, now moving away from a single focus on single axis trackers to a more diverse offering, really is an advantage that our customers are going to take advantage of.
Yeah.
We've developed a respect in this market where I think that in this region in particular, it's really going to solidify, the one-stop shop, as these guys are mentioning, for us.
And that's the key advantage, isn't it, that you guys see? So an EPC contractor would normally go to sort of multiple different suppliers for this bit, that bit. Now you're sort of proposing to them because of the acquisitions that you have and you are making, and this sort of whole name change, this whole refocus. focus, then they just basically come to you, and that sort of gives you a unique perspective on the market and a unique offering.
And like I mentioned, it's the respect that we've already forged over the last decade, and setting up, and we've had lessons that we had to learn on, and we've developed partnerships, from the installer base through to the developer to the government level. We've set up local manufacturing, we've grown roots, and this is just in this region. So I think this next play for Nextpower is really going to enhance what we've already established in the region.
Yeah. Maybe talk a bit more about that sort of local manufacturing capability. I mean, what have you done, and what do you hope to do?
The hope is there.
The hope is there.
For sure. And I think you of all people understand. I mean, you were there when we did our launch at Orcon, when we had the government come in and we did a big release of our torque tube manufacturing lines 2 years ago in Queensland. We were able to source those torque tubes onto one of the biggest projects in Queensland at Aldoga, and we saw a lot of momentum there. We were anticipating a bigger push from the government side to subsidize some of that and kickstart, similar to what Arena did with us with Moree on the very first single-axis tracker in Australia. We've now seen with these new programs like the Capital Investment Scheme coming to surface. So we are quoting quite a lot of the local manufacturing. We're working with the local steel manufacturers and providers to enhance that. So like Yves said, our goal would be to bring everything in country, similar to what we've done in the US with the IRA. And maybe Yves can expand on that.
Tell me what's happening globally in sort of that sort of manufacturing, just the sheer scale that's demanded now.
Of course there's an obvious appetite as a renewable company to produce in the region. You want to be sustainable, you want to reduce the carbon emissions from logistics, but also logistics when you go in places where you have a source of energy which is also a cleaner source. And Australia is moving towards we're going to be soon at 50% renewable energy produced in Australia, which is basically coming from renewable. So we would love to do more in the country, in the region. Of course, it has to work economically for all the parties, and particularly for developers and owners of those projects. So that's why, depending on the regions, and there's not one solution fits all, it depends, but a lot of the governments in some specific places, I can think about the US with IRA, but Brazil has a program which is very successful to enhance domestic content. Saudi Arabia is doing the same. India. So Australia, we're hopeful that we'll be able to work with the government and find a way with all the parties to make it work. We want it. Of course, it needs to make sense for all the parties.
No, of course, James, tell us a bit more about Agri-PV and tell us what it is and what you're doing.
Yeah, sure thing. So Agri-PV is, I suppose, the harmony of bringing together, green power into the agricultural space. And so that's something that we have had a focus on for some time, where historically there has been a bit of push-pull in terms of tension for, the use of agricultural land for renewable energy projects. And I suppose we see that doesn't necessarily need to be that tension by bringing together technologies that complement agricultural use. And so, within Australia, that's a bit of a focus for us as well. So recently, Nextracker has submitted to be part of the Agri-Solar CRC. So that's a research group that's being put together, which hopefully will reach the funding stage in 2026, and that will give us the opportunity to be involved in some specialized research projects, validating the benefits of specifically tracker technologies together on the dual use land, where you've got agricultural activities together working in complementary.
Yeah, and what sort of changes do you have to make when you're thinking about sort of a big solar farm? And you put it on an agricultural area, but you want it to coexist with, I don't know whether it can coexist with cropping, but certainly with grazing and things like that. I mean, Is there some way to describe the sort of the changes? Do they have to be higher, set further apart?
For sure. So there's a few different considerations depending upon what that land use is. So and we're kind of looking at from a few different sides about how you can get the best out of whether it's a cropping a cropping farm, or there might be livestock, and what types of livestock are going to be well suited. And so some of the things that we're looking at, if on the cropping side, for example, different types of crops could work better where they have a little bit of shading on the soil throughout the day, as opposed to being exposed in a hot, dry climate like what ours is. And so that's where we start to see the potential for a harmony between a specialized technology like a tracking solution that's catering to improve the performance of how those specific plants are going to grow. And that is something that we're doing some research together in some of our technology centers in other parts of the world, and then we'd also be planning to do here in Australia with the Agri-Solar CRC. On the livestock side of things, that varies a little bit. So, most solar farm projects in Australia already utilize sheep on sites for vegetation management, because the sheep are quite happy to wander around, eat the grass, and get a bit of shade in the middle of the day.
And a very low cost lawnmower.
Exactly, yep. And that can be a significant cost throughout the O&M period of a project, that vegetation management. And so for sheep, there's not too much that needs to be done from the tracker architecture. It's more around site layouts of how we can make sure the sheep can get in and out safely, what's going to be done, to keep the sheep happy at particular times of the year. We're also looking at cattle and whether cattle is going to be viable as well. So with the cattle, that would be where we would be elevating the structure a little bit, because the steel components, for the most part, they're probably going to be okay, but cows love to scratch themselves, and usually they're going to be going for the glass panels at the lowest point when they're tracking throughout the day. So that's what we're trying to protect by either elevating the tracker, but also we're also developing logic in our algorithms so that at particular times of day, the panels can be elevated to keep them out of the way of the cattle. So those types of things, which, bringing together a technology solution to make use of existing farming activities without being disruptive, and without having to change too much from the tracker side of things as well.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because the technology and the learnings are happening so quickly, because it's only been a few years that these things have been deployed at scale. But it's also quite important, both in terms of sort of social acceptance and also opportunities when you consider, solar farms and these big projects need to move into regional communities, they need to be accepted, and if you can present to them these cases that these things can coexist, and in fact, you might get better yields, you might get better production, you might, there's actual real benefits.
Oh, definitely. And I think, telling that story is so key to continuing to foster the success of green energy and penetration into rural communities. I know that that's usually where the discourse lies in terms of acceptance in the regional areas, less so in the cities. But, we see lots of really good success stories with well-managed renewable solar farm projects in all around Australia, in every state, in the rural communities. But it's just getting that balance right in terms of the right types of land for use, how you can be complementary with the existing agricultural uses, involving the community and making sure they're a part of those success stories as well with those projects.
And I hear a lot about sort of robotics and the way that that's sort of changing and improving efficiencies and sort of establishing and building there. What can you tell us about what you're doing there?
Sure thing. So the robotics piece, I suppose, just to take it a little bit back in terms of what we're trying to do as we move into Nextpower. So we're looking at integration of hardware with our products, as well as software and then services. And I think that is such a natural progression for the business in terms of where we've come from to where we are now. So, Nextracker was founded in 2013 off the back of an innovative tracker product. So at that time, tracker technology was not something that was new, but the Nextracker product was new. So it was a mechanically balanced structure, which meant that it could be self-powered and it didn't need a large motor, big drive components, by being self-powered, that meant that we could do individual road design as well. All of those new ideas at the time. But those new ideas were the catalyst for then so many more avenues of product development that we've focused on over the years. And I think, so that was our start, back in 2013 when we developed the hardware around our new innovative solution. But then on the back of that, we built the services to support it. What we then did with some of the transformational steps that we've taken along the way, we saw the importance of software and analytics, and that was a big focus for us several years ago now. With that, we've then just continued to build further with some of our other acquisitions where we're bringing more capability into the company. That focus on software and analytics has led into more advanced data modeling in terms of how we can improve project performance by increasing yield, as well as having more visibility into tracker health from the O&M side of things. And robotics is a great part of that, because we really see that that's where the market is moving towards. It can be in terms of robotic cleaning, installation, as well as the actual monitoring. So it's the whole life cycle of a project where you can get benefit to the asset owner with the integration for robotics.
Yeah.
And so that's what we've done. So starting out with the current acquisition, where we're adding more on the monitoring side of things. So robots that can go into the field, be capturing a huge amount of data very, very quickly that would otherwise be captured much more manually, and feeding that back instantly, so that if things are going wrong or need to be fixed, that's captured very quickly.
What do these robots look like? I presume they're not two-legged; they're just sort of other machines.
So they're little rovers with 4 wheels. They just trundle around, and then they have like a little stalk that pops up with the camera and the monitoring system on top. So. Hopefully in
R2D2.
R2D2. Okay, fair enough. Not C3PO.
Not yet.
Not yet. No, not far away. But robotics and AI must be something that you've got to think deeply about when you're thinking about supply chains and global supply chains and things. So, have you got anything? What's the change for you in the last year?
Well, we talked about scale.
Yes.
When we get at the scale that we're doing now, you need to basically just think about processes. It's not about adding people. It's really just improving your processes, automating your processes, and bringing in systems. So, of course, we are leveraging all the new technologies coming. But I would say even before that, we're talking about foundational things, just having the right process in place and the automation of those processes. As powerful as just trying to bring in those new shiny AI tools, which are anyway coming. But that's something that, definitely spending a lot of time on ensuring that we're leveraging the last available things available. Yeah.
Tim, when you look at the sort of the global energy landscape, I mean, what sort of strikes you most at the moment? I mean, there's obviously sort of political tensions and different things happening in different countries, but it seems to me that, solar was always going to be an incredibly important part of the green energy transition. But what we've seen over the last 6 or 12 months, particularly with the increases in wind prices and things like that, and the emergence of battery technologies and the falling costs there, that sort of solar just seems to be sort of thrust once more into the forefront of what can be achieved and what will be achieved.
Yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of it, there's kind of different nuances in different regions, that change a little bit, kind of the political landscape, like you talked about, where stuff's either manufactured or imported. But, what's consistent across the globe is that, people are trying to get more efficient, right? Like people are trying to build faster, put bigger plants in. So we need to start looking at automation. I mean, Yves mentioned, not just adding more people, solar plants in general are very labor intensive. These sites have, it's very repetitive and there's a lot of people on them. So being able to get more efficient with the people and the workers that are on site, and being able to kind of automate that and build plants in that manner, or more efficient manner is kind of critical to us.
Yeah, I mean, if going back to sort of the global supply chains, we read that in some technologies such as wind and gas and others, that there's big blockages there, and that's sort of causing delays. I mean, try to go out and buy a gas turbine now, you might have to wait for years. Same thing with the synchronous condenser, if that's what you want to have. What are you seeing in the solar business, and not just sort of solar modules and solar cells, but obviously your own business? I mean, are there blockages emerging, or is that your job to keep on top of that?
Not necessarily within the fence of the solar plants, where we see sometimes the issue is more like on the grid connection, so transmission lines, permitting, and just those large transformers. Within the fence of the solar plant, so far the supply chain has been fairly stable and able to react. Most of, not only on the tracker side, most of the parts of the tracker typically supplied in a few weeks. You know, we're talking about 2, 3, 4 months from the moment you get a contract from the customer. So they're able to react very quickly. And so, no, right now that's not been an issue, and that's been one of the driver also in some of the regions that are needing a very fast pace of development of new energy. That has been one of the key drivers of the solar industry, besides, of course, being one of the most competitive, if not the most competitive.
Absolutely. And both of those things, being competitive and having that sort of quick supply and that quick delivery is key on the reason why it's become even more cost competitive than it was before.
Yes.
Yeah. Peter, I mean, what are we seeing here in Australia? I mean, the indication is that there's a bit of resurgence there. Everyone was sort of saying, well, no one's going to build a new solar farm now because it's in the middle of the day and everyone's got a solar panel. Now we're just seeing these solar hybrid projects assisted by the falling cost of solar, the falling cost of batteries, the idea that you can now DC couple them. This must have suddenly, I mean, I'm guessing it's sort of a big rebound in the market here.
It is, and there's a lot of, with Australia in general, with the old coal fire plants decommissioning, there needs to be something to replace that. And with the cost of the fact that Australia doesn't have a tariff issue like they do in the US, the cost of solar storage is the most affordable utility there is in the market. It's growing. The size of the projects have gone, we sold a gigawatt sized project for one project this recently. And I never in a million years, I started in the rooftop 25 years ago, and it was 5 cents a watt for a solar panel. So we're in a position, and the diversity and the need for power is a global thing, and we're seeing projects being developed in regions I never thought was possible. We're looking at projects in the middle of the Pilbara where they're going on a tear on that side to carve that network in WA. So I think there is a lot of movement to really figure out a way to accelerate the programs. We're behind, right? I mean, the transmission lines, like you mentioned here, is a big issue, and they're 7 years behind. So we're seeing a lot of it, and on the positive note, come to the surface. And like I said, this transition for Nextracker really is going to enhance a one-stop shop for the market itself, and we're going to see growth on a level where we need to, leverage the fact that there isn't a whole lot of resource to build these solar farms. And I hear a lot of people talking about, we're bringing money in from foreign investors. No one's really talking about how we're going to actually execute and put these solar farms in the ground. So that's where Nextracker's strength is going to come to the surface. So we're pretty excited about this transition. And, the U.S. synergy with Australia is very similar culturally. So we put our hands up to help support launching some of these new programs into the international market. So, we have a very strong position in this market, and I think we can leverage that respect that we've established to continue to grow.
Yeah. Now, just to add on that, just as you just said, Australia, as the US, has the same issues of lack of labor, which is a global issue, but it's particularly true in those markets, and then very expensive labor. And Australia has also the issue that the sites are so remote that it's really a complexity. So having a solution which is thought to be very smart, integrated, minimizing the resources of labor, as Tim was saying, it's definitely a big value for the customers. And that's why this market, as the US, is naturally going to be the one that are going to take the most of the new generation, new chapter of Nextracker going to Nextpower, because that's where it makes the most sense.
Yeah. Well, you can just sort of see that at that gigawatt scale, a multi-gigawatt scale, in remote regions, you don't necessarily want to be dealing with a whole bunch of different suppliers. So if you've got one person that can do the lot, or one group that can do the lot, like Nextpower.
Plus, the integration is smarter, it's easier.
Yes.
You actually save the amount of people that you need.
Yes.
If you have a product which is smarter and integrated.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think just in terms of like integration from a supply side is one thing, but I think it also opens up many more opportunities for improving the product offering as well. So, I can recall last year we were at an arena event where it was essentially a brainstorming event bringing together all different people across the industry, and then putting those people together into a group and trying to see how do we get to these ultra low cost targets. And I think integration was such a big key point from those discussions, because it doesn't just take the module supplier or the tracker supplier or the developer or the installer trying to figure out how are we going to do this more efficiently from a time and cost standpoint. When you start to bring those groups together is when you're actually going to be able to carve into some meaningful success around trying to improve project delivery, but also product success as well, where that integration gives us the opportunity to, for example, the Origami acquisition, we can look at module frame integration into the tracker structure solution. And so, you get a better, more structural, stronger solution on the module side, which is, lower cost overall in terms of as a one product.
Yeah. I'm kind of fascinated to learn a bit about, going back to these sort of multi-gigawatt projects that could be built, in remote areas. From the technical point of view and sort of building foundations and the support, I mean, what sort of extra challenge does that present? Sort of a scale that we've not seen?
Sure.
In a remote region that we haven't been to?
Absolutely. And, we've touched on the resource constraints in those sorts of regions, and that just really, reinforces the opportunity around getting less labor off sites, essentially. So, where we have less manpower need to be deployed for the foundation installation or the tracker assembly, that's a net win for those projects that are so resource constrained. And on the foundation side, which is a big focus for Nextracker, we have a few different product solutions that reduce the amount of time for install. They're better suited for more varying ground conditions that otherwise would have been marginal for project development in the past. And the specialist technologies focused on that geotechnical space. And for me as a geotechnical engineer, that's super exciting, because we're bringing these products to market that haven't been utilized in this way in any other product application anywhere in the world. So, what we're going to achieve is faster installations into more challenging ground conditions with specialized machinery that requires less manpower. So big net win.
Yeah. So sort of wrapping up, Tim, what do you sort of think? What's sort of next for Nextpower? I mean, what's the... It's an exciting time. You're making acquisitions. You've expanded across the chain. You've changed your name. The solar industry is back, if it hadn't actually gone away. But it seems, I mean, what does the next 5-10 years look like?
I mean, I think we'll continue to grow and innovate. I mean, that's what Nextracker's about. I mean, if you look at what James was talking about kind of shrinking down the steps that it takes to build a solar plant. Like just on the foundations, we take, multiple steps and combine them into one, and I think we'll look at kind of combining these solutions and making them more interchangeable between the products and stuff.
Yeah. And Peter, just for Australia in the region?
Well, it is a tipping point. The market is literally moving to an acceleration that we need to consolidate and get the automation on the foundation front, supporting our clients in these remote locations and new regions like New Zealand and Southeast Asia. We need to, the supply chain is covered. I think we could deliver more steel than anybody else in the market, but consolidating the offering and allowing these people to really utilize a one-stop shop for us to accelerate these programs is critical to success.
And Yves, just take us back to the global stage of where we're heading, supply chains, transition, evolution,
I was going
dominance.
to say, besides the supply chain, one thing which we haven't necessarily touched, we touched it without touching it, it's really, I think, the core DNA of the company, even beyond the supply chain, the product and everything, which is the team, the people. And the culture of this company, going from Nextracker to Nextpower, that's not going to change at all. And that's the key strength, which is the DNA of the company is a technological company driven by engineers. All over the company, there's engineers all over the place that have one key focus, laser focus, which is customer satisfaction. It's just how do we create value for the customer upfront? How do we create value during the execution? How do we create value during the asset management? And that's one thing which is not going to change, is anything, and that's going to be reinforced and being able to apply this culture across larger set of portfolio products. And so that's exciting to be able to continue this journey that direction.
Yeah,
it's just, we talk about that many times. It's amazing to see that the founders of the company that went through an acquisition through a public company and then a spin-off and an IPO are still here driving the company. All of them, it talks a lot about this mission and this DNA.
That's right. Yeah. Well, it sounds like a unique sort of situation in the world. I mean, yeah. Anyway. A fascinating insight into one of the major players in the solar industry. New name, a new expanded business strategy, and coming, we think, just at the right moment to accelerate and make sure that this clean energy transition actually gets done. Thanks for watching.